Super Rugby round number 12, folks. Some big games this week in terms of that bottom of the playoff spots and those chasing teams. The Reds and the Brumbies, 5th and 6th, are playing each other. So unless it's a draw, someone is walking out of this one with at most 1 point. That leaves the door open a little bit for the likes of the Highlanders, the Tars in that chasing pack, but they're also being chased down themselves by the teams they're playing, the Force and the Drua. Plus we have a kind of top of the table-ish clash between the Hurricanes and the Crusaders. The Chiefs, who are first, are on the bye. And the one that looks like it should be a blowout is Moana hosting the Blues, but they have rolled the Blues before, so they will be fired up. We'll go through the squads, which are all out, some kind of key stats and predictions. You guys can let us know your thoughts on which match you are most looking forward to this weekend. It might be the first one for mine, Hurricanes against Crusaders, but that being said, the Hurricanes have been blowing teams away so much that they're not the kind of dramatic edge-of-your-seat finish matches at the minute. Like, the Hurricanes are playing beautiful rugby. They're putting on lots of tries. Finanganofo is scoring them for fun, apparently. He's getting so many hat-tricks this year, but it'd be nice to see the Crusaders push them. Back in Wellington for this one, so the Hurricanes are massive favourites. They are on 36 points with that game in hand over the Chiefs, so they will be on equal footing with the Chiefs games played after this match. So this is their chance to go clear at the top. The Hurricanes, they have brought back the beef in terms of that front row. In terms of Numia, Aumua and Tosi, who were on the bench last week, are back starting. You have Finanganofo, who scored 4 tries last week. On the left wing, will be on the right, who got a mere 2. Harkin is still there at fullback, and Duplessis Karefi, 19 tackle man, in a kind of slightly rejigged back row, which sees Lakai back at number 8 and Yose at number 6 for this week. So, yeah, they scored 7 tries last week to the Brumbies 2, and they still had 23 turnovers conceded. So they made some mistakes, and yet they still scored 7 tries. They still busted 51 tackles. That's nuts. Most teams are like 20-something. 51 tackles busted, 7 tries, and still dropped a bunch of ball. Still no Tyrell Lomax. He's injured for another like 4 weeks or so with his ankle, but they are looking good. For the Crusaders, there's still no Will Jordan. He's still at least a couple of weeks away, potentially a bit more. But they've brought George Bauer, the All Black. He's up from the bench to try and tackle other All Black, Pasila Tosi, in that battle at scrum time. Taylor and Newell, All Blacks themselves. So it's an All Blacks Crusaders front row. And also another All Black, Ethan Blackadder, back after a bit of an injury layoff. So he'll be looking to tackle the house down. They've kept up with Fainganuku at 7. So that's going to be a fascinating one against a kind of more specialist number 7 in the likes of Duplessis Karefi to see who has a more impressive game. But I mean, 19 carries last week in a game which the Crusaders, won comfortably enough. Bit more pressure on this week, but yeah, they're continuing on the experiment with him at 7. And then the back line is pretty much unchanged. Dallas McLeod was kind of unexpectedly the star of the show last week, scoring a bunch of tries and busting a bunch of tackles of his own. They had a heap of post-contact meters as well, more than the Hurricanes had in their game. So if they can get the forward pack rumbling, that will give them a better shot at not getting blown away in Wellington. But as I said, the Canes are favourites. 11 points with the bookies and 17 with the Rugby Forecast algorithm. The second game, Tars against the Force. I say it's important because the Force are on 14 points. The Tars are on 19. So remember, the Reds, who are the bottom of the teams in the playoffs, are on 23. So the Tars put themselves immediately in the conversation if they get a win, potentially into the playoffs if they can nab a bonus point win. And the Force get themselves into the same conversation the Waratahs are in if they can roll the Tars away from home. So, crucially important. You feel like the Force, it might be too long away if they drop this one. So they're under kind of slightly more pressure, perhaps, than the Waratahs. The Waratahs did drop that game over in Christchurch last week, and normally you'd say they have an extra day's rest because they played on the Friday, but the Force didn't play at all last week. The Force missed out on Super Round. They were on the bye, so they should be fresh and ready to go. The key news for the Waratahs is Joseph Akuso Suaili'i is finally back after what seemed like a extended layoff with injury. He's back fit. He's in the number 13 jersey. and that sees the guys around him rotate. So Lawson Crichton switches to 10, Joey Walton switches to 12. The rest of the back line is looking remarkably stable. Angus Scott-Young was a tackle machine last week, 21 from him. He continues on at number 6. An era they really struggled. They didn't win turnovers against the Crusaders. The Crusaders had like 8, 1 against the Tars, whereas the Tars managed a meager 1. They will need to be better than that against the Force. There's still no Harry Potter. He is out with concussion. For the Force, as I said, extra week's rest. Coming off a win over the Crusaders. Should have their tails up. And they've kept things stable, which is what you like to see. Don't change a winning team. Hamish Stewart is back at 12. That's pretty much the only change to the Force starting 15. There's still Tizano at 7. There's still Matt Greeley, who's been busting a heap of tackles at 15. Lomax got his first Super Rugby try. Zach Lomax on the right wing, so he continues on. Ikuasi's been big on the carry at number 8. That is stable stuff from the Force. And what I love about the Force this year is they are that story of a team which is doing it not the kind of stereotypical way. Like, I like rugby in that you can play the game in multiple ways. Like, you look at the stats, right? The Force have got the least offloads, clean breaks, run meters, and defenders beaten. So you would assume they are not a high try-scoring team. And they're not top of the table in that regard, but they've got more tries than the Reds, the Highlanders, the Waratahs, the Drua, and Moana. So more tries than one of the playoff sides. And yet they're not doing flashy, necessarily kind of stereotypical attacking stats, but they're still able to score tries. I love that about the Force. They are underdogs, but only by 4 points with the bookies and 6 points with the algo. But as I say, very much a must-win game there. Those are your 2 Saturday ones. On Sunday, we've got the early kickoff, the Drua facing the Highlanders. And as I mentioned, the Drua need to get themselves back in contention. They are on 16 points. The Landers are on 20. So the Landers also can surpass teams in the playoffs if they can get a away win. But it is in Fiji. Although Fiji has not been as much of a fortress this season as it has been in the past. They are at Bar for this one, so it's not in Lotoko, it's not in Suva. I've only seen the one game at Bar this far, I think, in Super Rugby altogether. Unusual one for the Drua, that Frank Lamani, the halfback, is on the wing for this one. Like, if there's ever a team that you would assume cannot possibly run out of wingers, it's the Fijian Drua, but they've apparently run out of wingers. So Lamani is on the wing. He did shift to the wing last week and scored. Didn't he score a try, or did he have one denied? But yeah, he's sharp, but he's on the wing, which is not his usual position. Logan Amasi's injured. I think Momo is injured, so they do have some wingers out. Do the Drua, and they have rotated a little bit. Samu Vodre is back in the midfield. Nasova is back on the left wing. Rabitu is back at fullback, so they have made some changes. Salawa was perhaps the star of the show last week. He was one of the top carriers, top tacklers of the game. He will need to be leading from the front. Thanakai Vata has been a proper ball-carrying machine as well, number 8. So he will be potentially a good shout in fantasy. My fantasy team's doing terrible, so don't take any advice from me. The Highlanders, they're coming off that win, which was maybe a little bit more hard-fought than they would have liked against Moana last week. Like, they had 42% possession against Moana Pasifika. That's a kind of side that you would have thought they would have been able to dominate in the kind of traditional aspects of the game. But no, they won it by 10 points. It was equal on tries. It was kicks that were the difference. So still not clicking as well as perhaps they might do as they are on paper. Ethan de Groot, Jack Taylor, Angus Ta'aval. So a couple of changes to that front row with Taylor and Ta'aval promoted from the bench. Ollie Haig switches to the second row this week from the back row. TK Howden up from the bench in that back row spot. And then Falau Fakatava gets the nod at number 9. Remember, he's been riding the pine a little bit recently. So Adam Lennox, he drops to the bench after a couple of impressive weeks. Naraki is back on the left wing. There is still no sign of Caleb Tangitau just yet. But yeah, 11 line breaks. Despite that lack of possession against Moana, they still were able to bust the lines. That is the kind of flip side. That is the good news story. And like Tavatavanawa had 4 of those. So they got the players. They are underdogs, though. The Drua at home, 4-point favorites with the bookies. Just 1 with the algo. Then Moana against the Blues. That one's predicted to be a blowout. You got the Blues on 33 points, third in the comp against Moana, who've got 4 points. Haven't got a point since the first round win over the Drua. But as I said, they were better than expected last week. They've been better than expected for patches. But yeah, you feel like this one, even though it's up in Auckland, should still be the Blues night, shouldn't it? They've made some changes, Moana. Morley is starting at tight head. Sanarivi continues on. And then Halanatai is at loose head. So they've made a couple of changes to their props. William Havili is having to play 10 because Pellegrini is out injured. They've kept Jackson, Guard, and Bishop on the bench. Vaihu is switching to fullback. So if you give him some space, he could bust some tackles. Failangi still captains at 6. He'll be looking to lead from the front. They got turned over 9 times against the Highlanders. They need to be a bit more secure in their own ball. But the Highlanders do have a couple of guys in the likes of, the likes of Tava Nawai and the likes of Lasanga who are really good in that department. So maybe they won't be as punished against the Blues. The Blues are without Papali'i, who was our top tackler last week, but he's out with concussion. So they've shifted Segner, who's been in good form. He's at 7. Torian Barnes is at 6, and Satutu's still at 8. Sam Knox is also going to get a nod at 9. He's back into the 23 after not playing for a while. Likewise, Eklund is back. Caleb Clark, who we have been missing as that power winger for a few weeks now, he's back. He's scored 7 tries thus far this season. He'll be looking to get over the line. You can't put him in your fantasy team, though. He's not available in the entire game. But yeah, 8 turnovers won against the Reds. Maybe the Blues are good at the turnovers, despite me not giving them credit for it just then. The Reds only managed 4 against the Blues. So if they can replicate what the Highlanders did and then show a bit more punch on attack, Blues should be too good. 25 points with the bookies, 24 with the Rugby Forecast algo. And then this game is going to put somebody under a heap of pressure. 23 points are the Reds in 6th, 25 are the Brumbies in 5th. Yeah, somebody's going to be either passed or very close to being passed. They're already very close to being passed now, surely. I mean, maybe you hope that the Force and the Drua get wins. Maybe the Hurricanes getting a win keeps the Crusaders within touching distance. But yeah, this is a really, really important game for the Reds and the Brumbies. The Reds showed a bit of good form by taking the Blues to Super Point last week. But remember, it wasn't that long ago. They got absolutely hammered by the Hurricanes and then the Force in two games in 2 weeks. And the Brumbies are just a little bit off the boil. So who finds the form here? The Reds have kept things also pretty stable. Hunter Paisami was big on the carry last week. He had 16 of them. He's still at number 12. McLaughlin Phillips still got the strings with Carter Gordon out injured still. And, Harry Wilson was carrying for days. McCright was tackling for days. They got a good back row. So it's pretty much an unchanged starting 15 from the Reds in this one. Their line-out will need to be better. It was 71%. The Brumbies was bad, but it wasn't that bad last week. They did still bust 29 tackles, which is a lot more than the Blues busted in that game. For the Brumbies, they've also made minimal changes. Lockie Lonergan starts at number 2. So both the Lonergan boys are starting this week. Ryan captains the side, and Toby McPherson, he's going to get a start at number 8 after coming off the bench last week. Rory Scott had 4 dominant tackles last week, which is a lot more than usual. Usually get 1 or 2. So he was putting in some big hits. Hopefully Tom Wright, who's, his 3rd game back? We haven't seen his kind of electric footwork just yet. We might be able to see that back. They'll also need to improve their line-out. It was at 75% last week, which is also pretty poor. And 51 missed tackles. Like, the Reds are not the Hurricanes. They won't be doing that to them. But goodness gracious me, they'll need to be better. The Brumbies, they are underdogs. The Reds are favourites at home. 2 points with the bookies. 7 points with the algo. You guys let us know your thoughts. Who is getting the wins this week? Subscribe to the channel for some more Super Rugby chat and stats and all that jazz. Take care, folks, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.